once again. This is Nuance, and I am Mike Scala, joined as always by Jay Carter, also known as Timid. He's the hip hop MC and the chair of BLM Tokyo. What's going on, Jay?
Same old, man. It's one of them days.
Have you adjusted to being back in the US?
Yeah, somewhat. I got up a little bit earlier today, instead of being 12 hours different.
Yeah, I would imagine the time difference is the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
So. Well, we've got a very special guest with us this week. We've got Jamie Parganos, who is the CEO of Creative Muse, who is teaching us all how to relearn our creativity. I think we all need that every now and then. So welcome, Jamie, and thank you for joining us.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And we want to talk about the great work that you've been doing. I see you posting about some of it, and a lot of our people are interested. For those who don't know, Jamie also lived in Howard Beach. So for our local audience, he is a local. In fact, he did some work at PS 232 here. So we'll get into that in a minute. But we like to lead in with something on the light side. And I saw something that intrigued me this past week. It was a chess boxing event. And I've actually been talking to some folks who are into chess. They're trying to set up some chess programs locally. And so I was doing some YouTubing and I saw this live event that was coming up, and it was this past weekend, chess boxing. And it's interesting because it combines chess and boxing, literally. And there was a Wu-Tang song, in fact, Mystery of Chess Boxing. So it's a thing that's been around for a while. I guess it's been intriguing to some people, to sports or contests, if you wish, that you wouldn't think are similar, but I guess if you're into, a kung fu fighting thing or that kind of stuff, it all kind of makes sense, right? Because you're always trying to outthink your opponent. And so it's the physical combat combined with the mental. Right.
Yeah. So they were having an actual chess boxing event.
Yes. And you can watch it. It's on YouTube, free on YouTube. It was actually pretty high production quality. Now, of course, there were some technical issues because it was the first time they were doing it, but all things considered, for a free YouTube event, it looks pretty good.
Now, if I'm clear, chess boxing would be where they play around the chess, then they get up and box, then they go back to play some chess.
Right. They do that a few times. I think it's 4 chess rounds and 3 boxing rounds until someone gets knocked out or checkmated.
It's just kind of interesting.
Right, just because it's so weird, like it sounds so weird, but it also kind of makes sense if you think about it. Like it's funny. But it's fun to watch because some of the people were really good at chess. Some were just good boxers, didn't really know how to play chess, and they had the balance of both. I think it was hard for them to find people who were good matches with each other, who were kind of comparable in chess or boxing. And then you had some matches where one person was just much better at chess, the other person was much better at boxing. So it was that clash of, the chess player is trying to win on the chessboard, the boxer is just trying to survive the chess match long enough to knock them out in the ring. So we had some interesting dynamics at play.
So how do you know when it's time to box and when it's time to stop boxing and play chess?
It's timed.
Oh, so it's like, okay, get up and box for 1 minute and then sit down and play chess for like 2 minutes and get up and, okay.
Yeah, and what was happening was people who were taking a hit in the ring were not playing as well on the chessboard anymore because they were getting beat up. And so that was part of the spectacle of it also, like someone who has great chess skills deteriorating as they're being fatigued and as they're being punched.
Sounds like hockey.
Yeah, when your head's throbbing, it's hard to think.
That reminds me of Wayne Gretzky. I watched a documentary and he was talking about how he came up with strategies, and there are skills of logic and the same skills you'd have in chess and sports, because you kind of have to think 10 steps ahead.
Yeah.
So if he goes left, I'm going to go this way. So
absolutely.
I see the correlation.
Yeah. And that used to always blow my mind as a kid when they would say, to play chess, you have to think 3 or 4 moves ahead. I was like, how do you do that? As a kid, I couldn't, I understood the idea of it, but I couldn't really grasp it tangibly. It didn't make sense, to be able to actually do that. Now, since I don't know if it's because I'm just an adult or it's because I do things that require me in life to do this, in law, for example, you've got to think about what the other lawyer is going to argue and then be able to out-argue them. So I'm doing that. I'm playing a form of chess in my career. And now that I'm actually sitting down for the first time in many years and playing chess, I can see it. I'm doing that. I'm thinking, okay, if I move here, he's going to move here. If I do this, and I am thinking it through as a way that I wasn't able to do when I was younger.
Yeah, it's true. Chess uses logic skills, and so does law,
Yeah,
detective work, medical work, because you have to like come up with a diagnosis. Anything that is like, if this, then this, right?
right,
So all of
right.
those things are involve the skill of
Yep,
logic.
yep. And it's also pattern recognition, which is why they say chess uses both sides of your brain. So we're going to talk about creativity. I mean, I think that's relevant in that context as well.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. You sent me the video. I didn't get a chance to look at the videos of the chess boxing, but yeah, that does sound. I don't know if it's something I'd participate in, but it does sound interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And so I did sign up to chess.com and played some games. I'm trying to get my rating up. I think it's a good hobby. You know, if you're looking for a hobby, that's one that certainly utilizes your brain power and exercises your brain muscle, right?
Absolutely.
I agree.
So speaking of creativity, we wanted to mention Granddaddy IU, who is an MC, legendary hip hop MC who passed away. Was a friend of ours, and OJ, you were pretty close with him as well. I'm seeing other people post about it. The guy really was well known in the hip hop community. In fact, Nori, for those who watch Drink Champs, the podcast, he actually calls Granddaddy IU his favorite MC of all time and his biggest influence. So
Right.
that's a big plug, you know, a big honor right there. Passed away. You know, all three of us obviously in the creative field or have been in our lives. And it's always a shock when something like this happens. I mean, someone who contributed so much creatively to our hip hop genre.
Yeah, and you know, I did a lot of work with IU. He recorded a lot at my spot, and you know, we would talk a lot, and he really like lyrically, like he was lyrically dope. It was the way that he said things, you know, creative. It was slick, and it was really dope. But he was also really good on the production. Like he even said a lot of times in different interviews that people didn't realize that he did production as well. And you know, he had a real talent for music, not just writing, but for producing as well. And there'd be like, you know, times we'd be recording and putting the tracks together, and it's just he'd want to hear there's one piece that he was like, oh, something needs to be here, and he would know what he needed to do. Like, okay, you know, I remember one time specifically, we were putting a song together, and he's like, "Yo, you got the keyboard?" And I didn't have the stuff plugged in, and so I'm like, he's like, "Yeah, I gotta put this, I gotta add this to it." I was like, "All right, hold up." Getting the keyboard, I had to plug all that in. I had to get the sounds loaded up that he wanted to use, and this and that, and then get it. It's playing. I'm going through this. You know, it took a couple of minutes to get everything hooked up. And then I'm like, he's like, all right. I'm like, you ready? He's like, yeah. I hit play, and the beat starts to play. He hits one note on the keyboard. He's like, all right, that's it. That's what I was looking for. It's just one note for this whole thing, but it was that's what was missing for him.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and you know, you have mixed and created songs, and sometimes there's a piece. It's like something, and it's part of that creative process. Like even if it's just one bit, it could be something that to you brings out something, or
right. It could be very subtle. It could be very subtle, a very small thing, but it makes a huge difference in the way it's perceived as a product.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and so that was one like that. But yeah, I was, you know, you never know, you know, things, you know, are going to happen. So we talked a lot and had a lot of things. We were planning to do some stuff, but yeah. Kind of a real.
Can we play a bit of "This Is the Way"? I mean, we shouldn't get a copyright strike for our own music, right?
No. Well, it depends on Facebook's thing. YouTube would probably grab it, but it wouldn't be a strike.
Okay. So yes, this is a song that it's a timid song featuring Ed O.G., produced by Granddaddy IU, and I had the pleasure of mixing it. I just remember getting those vocals. The Ed O.G. vocals in particular, because Ed O.G. is a hip hop legend in his own right. And when I got those and I was asked to mix the record, to me, that felt like validation in terms of everything I was doing. Because you know how when you get into music, a lot of times it's just trial and error. You don't know if you're doing it right. And you're probably not doing it right when you begin, but it's a learning process. And there's obviously an art that goes into it. And you kind of work on your craft as time goes on, you get better and better and find out what works for you. But up until that point, I think we were kind of just doing our own music. And so who knows if it's industry ready or if it's valid on some levels. But when you get a legendary artist's vocals to mix and then you create a song with their vocals, then it kind of validates your process. It's like, okay, what I've done has gotten me to this level, and apparently I'm good enough to make a song with LOG vocals on it and a Granddaddy IU beat. So that was just a big moment for me in my progression as someone just even behind the boards.
Yeah. So it was, yeah, I was really happy with that record. We did it, So.
Yeah. So here, I'm going to play a bit of it.
Not a pacifist, sick like a sadomasochist. Y'all playing roles like actors and actresses. On my game, putting work at them practices, putting rappers to sleep like numbers mattresses. A symbol like the asterisk. You have the disc, then I'ma smash your disc. Play center field like Coco Chris. Better yet, a Hall of Famer behind the plate like Carlton Fisk.
All right. We'll play the whole song. You guys should go on YouTube or anywhere music is available online. Check it out. It's Timid, featuring LOG. This is The Way, produced by Granddaddy IU.
And IU released several things in the past couple of years. There was a compilation album he did a couple of years back called The Essence, and where he was flexing his producer chops. He didn't rhyme on there. He produced the whole thing, and it was Method Man, it was Rod Digger, it was who was all on there? Babs Bunny was on there, I think. There was a lot of Golden Age cats, and that was what he put out, as well as his own stuff. And it was a dope album as well. Then of course his own classic album. So
yeah,
it's good to be
from Hempstead, right? He's repping Hempstead, Long Island.
Hempstead, Long Island, yes, sir. That's where he was from.
Well, thank you to everyone for tuning in. I see James in the chat, Jeremy, everybody watching. As always, we appreciate it. So I want to get to Jamie, because I know Jamie's been doing great work and she's been very patient as we talk about boxing and IU. But
I could talk about anything. So.
Yes, so we will. We'll talk about some other topics. We've got a poll result to go over and some other things, but I wanted to shine a light on the work that you're doing. And we call the video How to Relearn Your Creativity. And that's really what you're doing, right? You're teaching people how to relearn their creativity through Creative Muse.
Yes, we're teaching young children how to not lose their creativity that they innately are born with, and we're helping older students, and even we're going to be working with adults to relearn their creativity and expand it. That's what we're working with, and we believe creativity can be applied to any field. As a matter of fact, we were just talking about sports and Wayne Gretzky, and I actually just watched a documentary about what makes certain athletes great. And what Wayne Gretzky said was creativity was the skill that actually made him a great athlete. And I suggest people watch it if you're into sports. It has Pele in it, and Rice, and the Williams sisters. And they all, sort of have that same theme, that creativity is what propels them forward, is what made them innovative. And so, that's the premise we're working with. And we are artists. I have artists that work for me full time that teach these classes, that work with our organization. And they also have time to pursue their art. So we believe that that everyone should have a work-life balance, and we believe that the work they're doing outside of our organization can be brought back in. So that's sort of the framework we're working with in a
Right.
short little paragraph.
Sure, and you mentioned also that creativity is so important. If If you watch Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful on there, Kevin O'Leary likes to say that when he hires or when he invests in companies and he works with entrepreneurs, he looks for people who have a creative side to them, and maybe they do music on the side or play an instrument or whatever it is. He thinks that that's an important energy to have, or an important skill set, or important, vision, whatever, however you want to look at it. But it's an important thing, important side of you that he wants to see if you're going to be successful even in business.
Exactly my point, and we don't invest a lot in creative programs and arts, but the truth of the matter is creative skills, especially in the 21st century, are what's needed in finance, in business, and technology, and medicine. And according to Gretzky, he feels that creativity is in short supply these days. So, we're trying to keep it going.
Yeah, in the era where they're doing a lot of cuts to arts and music programs, like we're seeing where basically creativity is being divested from, and that's definitely not a good path to be going down.
No, because like I said, who's going to be the greatest people in finance? The creative ones. Who's going to be the best athlete? The creative ones.
Right.
It really is the difference. If you think about it, it's the difference between someone who just follows the path that everyone else has done. Like, you're going to read about it in a book or in a manual and say, okay, this is how you play a sport, or this is how you do business, this is how you do anything in life. I'm just going to do it the way it's supposed to be done. Okay, you can maybe get by doing that. But if you really want to be great, if you want to be a trailblazer, if you want to leave a legacy behind, you've got to bring some kind of creativity to the table, because you're trying to show people a new way. That's how you can stand out from the crowd, not just fit in.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I was going to say that kind of speaks to a lot of to some of the culture in Japan, whereas there's a saying in Japan that the nail, the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. So people culture-wise try not to stand out. They try to follow the rules specifically. But then again, within the culture, even though that's kind of the overall culture, there are still people who end up being politicians, who end up being artists. And so at some point, there's someone that goes against that grain that ends up standing out and taking these roles where either they're seen or they're going to lead people or whatever. So I think it is something that's necessary.
Yeah, it takes a lot of bravery, right? Because pioneers sometimes get stones thrown at them, literally.
Yeah.
And so it takes some bravery to be the one that's willing to do something new and different. And create, when you're creative, you have a lot of bravery when you're out there putting yourself out there as an artist. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then some of that is about that as well, being an artist yourself. We were talking music previously, but you also have that creative passion and creative lane. So how do you stay creative and foster your creativity while doing this work and doing your own?
Everything I do uses my creativity. So even this business, every day of my life is creative. I also have 2 children, so there's a lot of creativity going on here. I just create a lot.
Right.
I create things. I start things from scratch. I like this company, right? And I take a lot of initiative. But I also do a lot of meditation and mindfulness. And I also believe in that, like artists, athletes, anybody needs work-life balance. And in terms of creativity, having those breaks and like mindfulness and meditation, and allowing yourself to kind of take a step back sometimes will like bring ideas like into the subconscious. So you know how you hear like Paul McCartney said, oh yeah, I woke up one day and like yesterday was in my head. It's sort of that idea, right? And I think that could be applied to anything that, whenever you're working, that you make sure you also have breaks, and that's important to creativity.
That's happened to me before too, and I don't understand how that happens. Like, I've had dreams where I've had fully developed verses, in the dream. Like I was on stage performing a verse, and it was a great verse that if I was not sleeping would have taken me probably 5 hours to write. But I just had it spontaneous in a dream. Like, how does that happen? I have no idea how that works, but it's just
I don't
one of
know.
those
Do you
things.
believe in God? It could be spiritual. Who knows?
Your brain is open to be creative at that point. That at that point when you're dreaming, your brain is basically in control. There's no conscious blocks. There's no bias blocks. There's no world things that says you
Right.
can't do
There's
this.
no
You
writer's
can't do that.
block.
There's nothing. It's just pure creativity, and it happens a lot. And even what Jamie was saying as far as taking breaks or even stepping away, that could also foster creativity, because I'm sure you've had it. I've had it. Say you're driving, you're not sitting at the table trying to write a song or trying to produce something. You're in the car just driving, and then boom, lyrics are in your head, and it's like, oh my God, I need to put this down. I can't, where am I gonna get this? Yeah.
We've got a PS232 alum in the chat, Jeremy, who says creativity is important. We need creative solutions to our problems. So, Jamie, I wanted to ask you, what exactly did you do when you were working at PS232?
I actually ran the middle school after school program for a while. I had a great time over there. I loved the kids over there. And I ended up getting another job, so I had to leave, but I really enjoyed my time there. I love the school population, the students. Um, some of my favorite group of kids I've ever worked with. I miss them. I hope they're okay.
That's nice. That's nice.
So if anyone now would like to get involved with what you do you have programming for kids? Is there a way that parents can sign them up, or how would they get involved with Creative Muse?
It depends how they want to be involved. You could shoot us an email at info@creativemuse.org. But currently, we're not opening any new programs. But you can always check back to see if there are new job openings coming in the future. We're hoping to expand eventually, but right now we're focusing on what we got going to make sure that we do it right.
And so creativemuse.org is where they can find you, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so definitely go check out some of the work that Jamie's doing. I saw you also mentioned on social media funding for some kind of program. Is it a TV show or a streaming show?
Yeah. We're gonna be doing. We're gonna be part of an episode of Ted Danson's Advancements in Tech, and so we're gonna be talking about mindfulness in tech. Some of the programs we're gonna be doing starting in January with drone technology, and but doing it in a very creative way. We're doing like choreography with drones. So, yeah, that's basically going to be happening. It'll be streaming on Amazon and airing on Bloomberg Television.
Now let me ask you a question, and since you're into creativity, and I'm sure that includes all forms of things of art, music, drawing, these types of things. What's your take on the future of creativity, given what we're seeing like the past 2 weeks with AI generated artwork, like with the application Lensa, right, and things like that, the questions that are coming about. So is that going to make people less creative? Or you can just tell AI, I want this, and it's going to spit it out for you? Or
I don't know the answer to that yet. It's so I don't want to speak ahead of like having thought it through like in a real way where I've done research. But I always have faith in people and faith in creatives, and I I just think that stuff is very limited, and even to use that, you need to be creative. So, like, let's say I look at my feed. A lot of people use that app and posted pictures, like whatever was fed to them. Some people like took it a step further, right? They made funny jokes about it, or they had a creative idea and attached it to it. But I don't know yet. I don't know what the answer is yet, but I do think that some of the technology we have, like TikTok and some of this other stuff, can sort of create this like trend-based culture, which where it's like all about following a trend, following this, following, and following, and that part I don't think is good.
interesting.
People have to be willing step outside of line once in a while, color outside of the lines once in a while.
I think with the, and you're right, we don't know, it's still early as far as like the AI types of artwork, like what we're seeing. And it's kind of incredible. You see people can go to some of these AI generated websites and just type in a line. You'd be like, you know, I want a picture of a New York rapper with a cheese block on his head in front of reindeers. And it'll make, you know, this AI image. But there are also websites where you can go to and say, I want a hip hop beat, this BPM with this type of feel, and AI will generate a whole track. So like, yeah, that you know, what is that for the future? Like, how's that going to work?
Yeah. I'm
people-
seeing also AI generated sitcom scripts now and all kinds of things that are taking creativity,
Yeah,
at least the way we, but maybe that's why we need to relearn our creativity, right? It's going to force us to adapt to the changing times. It takes the creativity out from the understanding that we've had of it before, but maybe that's a cue for us to redefine what creativity is and step our creativity up and adapt with the times.
I think with something like TikTok, for example, I think it's a really good creative outlet. Like, it does create trends, people go in and do what other people are doing, but just the short form content people are doing such creative things with. And it's crazy. Some of it's very slick, some of it's very intelligent, some of it's very cool, but it's a creative outlet. And I think it's a really good thing. It can be bad for attention spans, but for creativity, I think it's pretty good.
Understood. I think there's two sides to every coin,
Yeah.
right? And I also think it's interesting to like see how people have reacted over time to technology. So when you think about when the car first came out, there were people that thought it was the end of the world,
Absolutely.
that, you know, and maybe it was, I don't know. A lot of people do die in car accidents, but some people were like, it's the end of humanity, you know. And people were really against it. And so, you know, it's hard for me to say when something just comes out, what's going to happen, you know, how do you know? And what I'm more concerned about is people and what they're doing. Like, what do they believe? How do they handle their emotions? Are we evolving emotionally and socially? No matter what technology we have, if we're not evolving emotionally and socially, we're going to use the technology horribly.
That's true. Absolutely. Absolutely. As long as there are still users, then there's that kind of choice of which path that you go down. When they get rid of the users, then it's kind of over. When it's AI making
Right, that's what you gotta look out for, right? Like AI creating stuff for AI.
Absolutely, that's when we got an issue that
I don't know. Is it possible? I don't know.
Yeah, it's, you know, we're in the beginning stages, and it's going to get, you know, it's going to go further and further. I just read a news article. Oh no, it was a news article. It was a TikTok actually, and this guy was talking about this news article that came out where they did a study with an AI medical program, an AI doctor versus real doctors, and the AI doctors were identifying the correct diagnosis like 20% more of the time than real doctors were. And so the question they were saying, well, do you want an AI doctor or would you want a real doctor? If they're getting it right more often than real doctors, which do you want? Or what are we going to be looking at in the future?
I want a real doctor that's creative,
Right,
and actually like knows the latest information.
But the AI would have the latest information, more than a real doctor.
But they're still missing that humanity. I mean, there's only so much we can train it to have that empathy and to understand that particular situation, which maybe on paper reads one way, but there might be a little wrinkle in it that the AI is not going to get. I mean, obviously the AI is getting more and more advanced as time gets on. Maybe it's approaching that, but I still think that the person has more inherent creativity than the AI will to solve the problem.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I also think that no, I lost my thought. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. Now I was going to say that in the study, what it was, they sent, the way that they did it was they fed these brain scans into the AI looked at the brain scans, and from that they were able to make this diagnosis, and doctors with the same thing and whatnot. But I think that also speaks to Jamie's point earlier is that it can be a tool. So why not both? Have a real doctor who's running the AI, and that can look at that and be like, oh, well, I don't see this, but the AI sees this, so let me check for this as well. And then now we've got.
I was going to say the same exact thing. In fact, I'm working on software right now, and I don't want to get too deep into what it is. I'm still developing it, but it's designed to solve a problem that I deal with in my work. And it's going to really make it easier to do my job in some cases, but I'm not planning to just use it to replace me, because I'm still going to have it do the work, but then I'm going to come in and check it and look at it and say, okay, this is a great start. This is a foundation, but now I'm using my own expertise and put my own personal touch on it in a way that the computer can't. So like you said, I think the way forward, at least at this point, is to have computers working in conjunction with people to find that maximum efficiency.
Use them as tools, make sure they're tools. Yeah.
And maybe the AI will push people to try to do their jobs a little better, like doctors. I just recently had my own misdiagnosis, and I had gone in there and I had done the research, and I brought in medical journals, and I kept telling them, like, I don't think I have what you're telling me you have. And they just didn't want to think outside the box. They probably also don't want to get sued, so there's that. But I was a little disappointed. I've been a little disappointed lately with the medical field in general. But
sounds like you need an AI doctor to come to download into your phone or something.
I'm my own AI doctor at this point. My brain's like a computer with this stuff,
So yeah, I mean, that's it. I just find it interesting when we're talking creativity, and then you're comparing that to what algorithms are doing, even in that space. So it's like, it's where are we going to be going 5 years from now?
Well, we definitely need more creative approaches to problems. And last week we posed a problem that may take a creative solution by the Supreme Court, because it was a Supreme Court case about the tension between anti-discrimination laws, which are passed at the state level, and free speech, which comes from the federal Constitution, of course. And we put out the poll to kind of see where people stood on it. And in particular, there was one case that we talked about that went to the Supreme Court about a website designer who did not want to make a website for gay weddings, right? And so the argument there was that their free speech was being implicated because they were being asked to write a message, essentially, that they did not agree with. And so in Colorado, where this was taking place, there was a law saying businesses could not discriminate against LGBTQ people. But there's also obviously the First Amendment to the Constitution, which is held against the states via the 14th Amendment. So constitutionally, you have free speech in every state. And there was this tension. Now, it seemed even the liberal justices in the Supreme Court seemed to be siding or were more sympathetic to the free speech argument, but it is a nuanced issue. And so we put this poll out and got interesting results, which I want to talk about. Between Facebook and Instagram, it was 69%. Yes, the business should be subject to the anti-discrimination laws and not have their free speech rights trump the anti-discrimination laws. 69% sided with anti-discrimination, 31% said the freedom of speech should prevail in the case. So pretty lopsided on that one, but it's a very politicized thing. And I was looking into it deeper, even the article that I posted to kind of give some more background to it. If you open it, it's talking about the conservative Supreme Court. And it's like, if you're not a lawyer, you maybe not thinking of it this deeply in terms of the law and the constitutional angle. You might be thinking of it in terms of the politics, and you start seeing, oh, the conservative Supreme Court is siding with this business owner who doesn't want to make a website for LGBTQ people. I don't like that. Like, that sounds like a bigoted thing, and probably is, right? So I can see that, but I think it also kind of underscores just how politicized our society is, where that's like even the articles where you're trying to give information on this Supreme Court case are written with these like hyper-partisan political terms that I think just have people taking political sides without even be willing to dive into, or maybe that people don't even have the capacity because of all the information that's out there. The whole world is framed politically. I don't even know if we're capable to look at things from a politically neutral constitutional angle. Again, I understand most people aren't lawyers, but even so, even putting that aside, you would think in an ideal world, more people would be able to look at something and take the politics out of it and say, okay, how does the law apply?
Right, absolutely. And like you said, it is a nuanced issue, and but it does have like that kind of bigoted
Yeah.
flair to it, it would seem. Now we put the poll also out on YouTube, and it did fairly well in terms of views. It's like 1,300 views or something like that. I've got a few comments off of it also. And we had one comment said it would set a dangerous precedent that could be used to target minority groups. Someone else said, let me see, what was the frame to the question? Should a private business be subject to state anti-discrimination laws even when they conflict with the business's free speech? Had another one that said yes. And then we had someone that started out was interesting because they said, give me an example of that because those things contradict each other. He said that with some colorful language. So, and so I thought that was a good response as far as, wanting to know a little bit more about what it is that we were asking.
Yeah. And I understand also why a lot of people, I think at first blush say, oh no, free speech should not be able to override anti-discrimination laws, because I think they're afraid that could always happen then. So like this was a very specific example about the words on the screen. I think that people might be afraid that if we say that the free speech wins, that means that anyone can basically be excused from anti-discrimination laws by claiming their free speech, which isn't what we're saying, but I can see people being afraid of that if we're presenting it as free speech versus anti-discrimination.
Right. Now this guy, that conversation, we went back and forth a little bit, and I was trying to draw it a little bit more because I sent the link and explained what it was. And I have a sense that this might have been a conservative person, because he kind of took the point that I think he sided with free speech should overrule, because he was saying that if a business decides not to service a certain customer, then they would just miss out on that business. Right. So if they don't,
like the libertarian viewpoint.
Right. So,
I think in a perfect world that works, but the world is not perfect. And that's
right.
How is this an issue of free speech, though? It's a business. So how does...
Right, because in this particular, and most of the time it isn't. So if it's just a matter of a business refusing to serve someone because they belong to a minority group, that's not a free speech issue. And you can have both things simultaneously. You could have an anti-discrimination law that says you cannot discriminate against people in these groups, and you could have free speech. I mean, they could say, in my opinion, I should be able to. They can say whatever they want, but they still have the law saying that they can't discriminate. But in this case, they clash specifically because we're talking about the business essentially being compelled to write something that they disagree with. And the example, Jay, that I was actually thinking of that might be a better analogy for people who can't really grasp like why there's a clash here. What if we were offering a service to the public that will make a song for people based on what they want us to rap about or sing about or whatever, right? Like we're putting this out there on a website. We're saying you could hire us to do a custom song.
Right.
Should we be forced then to make a song with lyrics in there that we utterly disagree with? I mean, I try to take out like the bigotry and all the kind, because I understand that's the element. You don't want that person to win because of their viewpoint.
Right.
But we're talking about just in general terms, in terms of free speech. Should anyone ever be forced to say something or put out something into the world that they don't want to say, under the penalty of a fine or potentially even prison from the government?
Right. And I think that's where it makes it very difficult, because you would, right off the top, you would say, no, they shouldn't have to do it. Like, you should be able to say, no, I'm not going to, I decline to write that, so, it becomes a difficult thing. So. And
we know, listen, just looking at free speech itself, taking away the anti-discrimination in business law for a second, just looking at free speech, we know that people have a right to say bigoted things. So even if we disagree with the content of it, people are allowed to say that. They're allowed to have those positions, and they're allowed not to say it. I mean, if someone doesn't want to say good things about gay marriage, that's their right. No matter how we feel about that, under the Constitution, they have that right. And so then the question is, should they be compelled to make those statements if they disagree with them?
Right. I think that's where it kind of comes down to, is the compelling part of it. Can you compel someone to speak a certain way or say a certain thing or do a certain thing? And that becomes a little bit of a different issue than simply I don't want to do this or that. Like, no, well, you have to. It's
Yeah. And Richard, who was an attorney we had on last week, made the point that it's not as though this business is saying that they will not provide service to a gay person. Like if a gay person said, I want to make a website about my clothing store or something that had nothing to do with marriage or sex or gender, presumably they would be okay with it. In particular, in this case, that they're saying they don't want to put that particular message on a website about gay marriage. And so is it that they're discriminating against the person for being in the group, or is it just a message that they disagree with in very narrow terms? Right.
And it's very, and like you said, let's say, I don't know, somebody from NAMBLA came up and was like, hey, I'd like you to write a pro-pedophilia song. Like, I'd be like, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that,
Absolutely. But obviously the difference in that case would be there's not going to be a state law saying we can't discriminate against people in NAMBLA.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that to
compare, right.
It's an
extreme example.
Right. It'd just be an extreme example. It could be, murder or something like that. I'm not interested in writing that.
This is interesting. I think the law should be there, but people, I mean, you don't have to tell someone I'm not taking your business because you're gay, right? I mean, the law should be there to protect people. And if a business doesn't want to take a client, they don't want to take a client.
Right.
There could be 100 reasons why a business doesn't want to take a client.
Absolutely. And I think
I'm speaking ahead of myself because I don't know enough about it. I'd really like to do some research, but thank you for making me think about this, Mike. It's definitely an interesting topic.
And that was also a point that we kind of touched upon last week. The business doesn't have to say, this is the reason why I'm doing it. It seemed like they were making a point because they wanted to make a lawsuit out of it.
What I read is they're preemptively suing, that they don't want the law. And it's so to me, it's more about like being a bigot than anything else. But yeah, go ahead, Jay.
No, I think that there's probably part of that. I get the sense like, because they could have just said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I'm not able to do it this. I've got other customers." They wanted to make a point to say, "I'm not doing it because it's LGBT messages. I'm not doing it." So they wanted it to be known. They wanted to grandstand. This is my estimation. I'm not sure what went on in court documents, but that's what I would get from it. And so there is, to me, blatant bigotry in that part of it, because you didn't have to say why you're not doing it. Just, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it right now. My schedule's full."
And that's an important point to make also. I do not agree at all with that viewpoint that person is espousing, right? They're saying, I will not make a site to celebrate gay marriage. Yeah, I think that's a bigoted viewpoint that they have. But separating that from the law is important. And that's why I think you see even liberal justices on the Supreme Court saying free speech does kind of trump here. I mean, if you agree that free speech is implicated at all, I mean, because some people will say this isn't even a matter of speech, but if you agree that their First Amendment rights, their constitutional rights are implicated or on the line here, then they do kind of take precedence over a state law. And what the Supreme Court is trying to decide is whether that state law is unconstitutional. Does it clash with the Constitution? And so if you agree that there is that clash, then you kind of have to lean towards free speech because that is the constitutional provision.
Yeah, and we raised the same question. I raised a similar question to make it clear that Jamie just raised when we talked last week about how that becomes a free speech issue, right? Because they're just building a website. How does that become their free speech violation? And I think that's another point. And you kind of answered that a little bit earlier as well, but that's also something that needs to be in that type of discussion, because it wouldn't be, I guess it'd be the same thing in the song example as well, though.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good analogy, the way that kind of puts it into the context. I think people would more easily understand that example, right?
So my question would be this: if they said, "Okay, well, let's do this," what if that client was like, "Okay, well, here, we've got the copy for you to put on the website. You don't have to write it. You're just building the site." Mm-hmm. So now would they be able to say their free speech is being violated?
If they're not writing those words?
Right. They're just the client gives them the words. They don't have to come up with them themselves. I
don't think that's the issue, though. I don't think that's a matter of who's coming up with it. I think that the person just doesn't want to design a site with those words on it.
Right.
Jamie, I know you got to run.
Yeah, I don't understand how that's even an issue of free speech, but I'm not a lawyer, so my
Well, it's just
business
the idea of
is
putting out words.
education. So
It's just the idea of putting out words that you disagree with. I mean, that's what
Right.
it is. I mean, and there are different examples of that. Like we
so
mentioned,
being forced to say something you don't want to say.
correct,
Right.
correct. Like, for example, if people write something in the chat here, these aren't our words, but we shouldn't be forced to read them either. If we disagree with them entirely, you just don't want to put them out on our channel. You know?
But you're not saying them. You're being hired to put them in. I don't know.
You're being hired to say them, but you
I'm
have.
not a lawyer, but if
There's
I
also
was,
something-
I'd probably.
There's
have to
also
tear this
something
one
called the
apart.
13th Amendment, which there's a whole documentary on, but we can't essentially force people to do work they don't want to do, which comes
Right.
from outlawing slavery. So if someone is saying, look, yeah, this is my job, this is my business, but I don't want to take this job, they can't be forced to do that either. Now they can't discriminate. They can't say I'm only going to serve people of a certain class. But is that what this is exclusively, or does this have this free speech element because they're being asked to say something? That's where it gets more dicey. But anyway, Jamie, I know you have
But
to
the
run.
actual job they're being asked to do is to publish a website. So they're doing that either way. So it's not that they're being forced to do a job. It's more about they're saying they're being forced to put out an idea that they don't believe in.
Right.
And I think when they put the website, when they finish, they design the website and they publish it, essentially that's kind of their creative work. Their name is associated with it. Their image or whatever it is associated with that. And so in that sense, it's kind of their free speech because it's their, I don't know if it's their IP, but it's
Yeah.
kind
Right.
of their
But it
creativity.
doesn't have to be their IP, right? But it's like a work for hire. Let's say you're hired to, I don't know, write a textbook or write the intro to someone's novel or whatever it is. You're writing it for them, but it's still your words, or at least you're putting that as part of your creative work, right? You're including that messaging in there, even if they're giving you the words to say. Let's say I'm writing it. Let's say I'm giving a speech and someone writes the words for me. It's their words, but if I'm saying them, they can be attributed to me.
Right. So that's kind of where I think the free speech comes in. But I think, again, for that person to make that point, to not only say, I'm not doing it because it's LGBT, and to take it to where they're going to go to the Supreme Court over it, I think it's not a free speech issue then. It's a bigotry issue. And to me, and I'm not a lawyer, but I would say that should be something that the lawyer should come up with in court and say, hey, that's no, you're doing this.
I don't understand that argument, Jay. Why can't it be both? I mean, yeah, we can say it's bigoted, but that's our opinion on it. That's separate from the constitutional and the legal analysis.
But then wouldn't that then go against that discrimination law in Colorado?
But that's the whole point of the case, that the discrimination law as is being applied to this business is arguably unconstitutional because it affects their free speech rights.
But even if at the federal level, to discriminate against them because of them being LGBT, isn't that against the law even at the federal level?
Well, that's not what we're talking about. This is a state case, a state law, but the point is not that they're discriminating against them. And I'm giving the argument of the business owner here, right?
Yeah.
Their argument is not that they're trying to discriminate against people in violation of the law. It's that if you're going to say, I cannot do this, I cannot refuse service in this particular case, meaning I don't want to write these words on the site, and you're going to say that decision of mine violates the law, that's against my free speech because I have the right not to say that, right? So anyway, Jamie, I know you have to run. We like to give our guests—
I have to put my kids to bed, sorry.
Okay, no problem. We thank you for joining us. We like to give our guests what we call the bottom line. So like anything you want to leave our people with, and it could be a summary of what we talked about or any thoughts that you have about anything at all. What is the bottom line?
One creative idea could change the world.
Yes. I agree completely. We're seeing in the chat as well. People are agreeing with that. So we thank you, Jamie, for joining us. This is great. We always talk about this. We're all about creativity, and Jamie is the embodiment of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Have a good night.
Bye.
So yeah, it's
interesting. It's interesting, and it's funny because politics are so ingrained in everything. Obviously, this is a deeply political issue, taking a constitutional angle, right? And so I think people are just thinking, this sounds like bigotry. I don't want that guy to win, or I don't want this lady. It's actually a woman, right? I don't want that woman to win.
Right.
And I understand that point of view as well. But as lawyers, we're supposed to remove that element of it and just look at the constitutional analysis, because the Constitution is there to say people have rights to do unpopular things. I mean, things that society might shun, but they're not supposed to be punished by the government for them if it's their speech.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, and it's definitely going to have ripple effects from, you know, if she wins this case and it looks like they're going to side with her, that's going to be, people are going to cite that in many other cases, I think.
Yeah, but it's a pretty narrow example, isn't it? Most instances of a business serving the public aren't really about their speech. Like if you are selling shoes,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You can't say, my religion says I can't sell shoes to you. That's a free speech issue. I mean, you might try to argue a religious issue, but in terms of speech, how is that your speech? It's not.
yeah. We've had, I think we brought it up. There was the famous case that was kind of something similar, not exactly the same as what was the wedding cake,
Yeah.
the bakery, where she didn't want to do it for gay weddings. But she said it on religious grounds, not on a speech.
Right. Well, the thing is, that case was very narrowly decided on the idea that the Civil Rights Commission in Colorado issued an opinion which was not religiously neutral. And so the Supreme Court just kind of focused on that one point and said that the state and its commission has to be religiously neutral. Because they weren't, it struck down their decision. So we didn't really get any resolution on the arguments they were making about the freedom of religion and those other things that came into it. This case, it looks like we might get a decision on the merits. I mean, who knows what the court will end up doing, but it looks like it may go that way, where they say that the free speech prevails over the anti-discrimination law in this particular case.
It sounds like what they're going to do, or what they're doing, or you know, the point is to boil it down, like you said, take out the idea of the bigotry, and just look at, can we constitutionally force someone, compel someone to do something they don't want to do, and they're
say something they don't want to say.
Right, to say something they don't.
Yeah,
want. Yeah.
That's the distinction. I mean, because you can't go. You take it to the extreme and say, I have a constitutional right not to serve people who are gay or serve people who are black. No, we know that there are laws against that and they've been upheld, and you don't have a constitutional right to discriminate against minority groups. We know that. But the question is, what happens in the particular case when your free speech is directly implicated, when it's saying something you disagree with?
Right. And yeah, so it's going to be interesting, and like I said last week when we talked about it, that's kind of what that whole thing in Canada was, when they were putting it into law that people had to refer to people by their chosen pronouns, or there were legal consequences, and that's where there was, you know, arguments, and that professor stood up and was like, hey, you can't compel me to say something. So. Yeah,
I mean, you can't, within reason, tell people what to say and also what not to say.
Right.
That's their speech. It's up to them. It's up to me to say what I want and not say what I don't want.
Right. And people have to recognize there can be consequences for that. You have the right to say certain things or not say certain things, but there are the rights to have consequences to, you know.
And that's the thing also that I think a lot of people seem to overlook. We're speaking of this in strict constitutional terms. And in other words, does the government have the ability to compel you to say it or not to say it? It's about the government potentially infringing on a business's or business owners' rights. That's a completely different conversation from, are the consequences for your speech. A lot of people don't seem to understand that or want to understand that anymore. And they think that you should just be able to say whatever you want, and it's your free speech rights, your First Amendment rights are violated if there are consequences from other private people. I mean, that's just not how the world works. There are reactions to what we do and say. The Constitution protects us from the government, not from other people in the world.
Absolutely. And I think, this lady, if she wins this case, even if she wins the case, she still has to go back to that community, and the people in that community have to be like, well, this is what she went to court over. We don't want to use her service. We don't agree with her, the way she's thinking. And there's some consequences potentially,
and hopefully. right? But the way the world is now, you might also see people rallying to her defense who are on the other side.
Yeah, we want to go with her.
It's hyper political and partisan now.
Yeah,
that's what you get.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of being hyper political, the 2024 Democratic National Convention, Mayor Adams is making a bid for it to come to New York City. And you can see why he would do that. It's good for the city on its face, brings a lot of business, a lot of activity. It's a highlight for him. I'm sure he would angle for a prime speaking role in that. But is it the right decision in a presidential race? Do we need, as Democrats, New York City? Obviously, we need to win New York, but it's not like New York is really in danger of being lost in a presidential race. Would it be more impactful to do it in a swing state? Maybe
Right.
Florida, maybe even Texas, which is getting more purple, right? Maybe a place that's within reach or can become within reach. Do we get the bang for our buck in New York City?
Right. I get that point. Like, it would make more sense to go to an area where you want to rile up more Democratic support. Right. Like you said, a swing state. You want more people to come out and participate on your party line. So you go there and you give something that's going to bring them out and hype them up. You know, you got some heavy hitters that come and give speeches and talk, and now people are feeling fired up. So you know, in New York, like you said, it's not in danger of anything. It's a pretty safe, blue state in that regard. And so, yeah, I think it makes more sense to not go to New York in the long run in the bigger picture.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what are you really gaining out of it? And we've got the electoral college system. So it's not as if you could say, well, New York is a blue state, but if you have the convention there, you get even more people to vote. It doesn't matter, unfortunately. If 10 people vote or 10 million people vote, it wouldn't matter as long as the result went that way. I mean, the electoral votes are going to be the same regardless of the turnout. So it's not like you're trying to drive up turnout in your base locally.
Right.
What is the value in doing that?
Yeah, they should go, a swing state, or like you said, Florida, maybe Texas, somewhere where they need it. Georgia, there's no
reason. Maybe even Georgia, right? Do it in Atlanta. That would be interesting.
Yeah, there's no reason why, Walker should have been that close. Just not like. So yeah, it doesn't make much sense to go to New York. But for Adams, it makes sense. Like you said, he's gonna want a spot, and he's gonna want to, like, I don't know. I didn't see the news story, but just scrolling through the feeds, there's just a picture of him on a horse. So I don't know what that was about, but for him and his career and his visibility, to bring it to New York looks better for him.
Yeah, and you know what? It's good for New York's economy. I won't deny that. It's good for the city of New York, but is it good for Democrats on the national level? Right. Absolutely. So I actually would like to make that the poll question of the week, get people's thoughts on that one. And this one should be a lot easier to phrase than last week's question was, not as nuanced perhaps. But the question of the week is, do you believe that the 2024 Democratic National Convention should happen in New York City? It's funny, I don't want to prejudice this in any way, but I can see conservatives and progressives saying no.
Yeah, conservatives would be like, yeah, they just shouldn't have one at all.
Yeah, or not here, not in my backyard.
Just stay home. We don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's yeah. I wonder, outside of Adams' potential personal benefits, career benefits, I wonder what the other thinking would be to have it in New York as opposed party-wise. Now, like you said, for the city, it's good for business. It can do this and that. For Adams, it can be personally good for his visibility and career. But party-wise, why would they be interested in doing it in New York City? I wonder.
Right.
Let's call up Pelosi, or get them on the horn. Let's talk to them.
Pelosi's not Pelosi anymore, right? Her tenure.
No. Has he been sworn in?
Hakeem Jeffries?
Yeah, for that role.
Well, I believe it's good. I mean, I don't know if she officially stepped down. I would think it would start in January when the new House came in, and he wouldn't be the speaker. He'd be the minority leader, right?
Yeah, but she's going to be doing the speaking circuit pretty soon. Then, so let's get her on the show.
Get her on Nuance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he actually, up until now, is our local congressman here. He won't be with redistricting. So the other thing that was interesting about Mayor Adams that we wanted to bring up is this personality test that apparently he took and people on his leadership team took. And they're trying to put people into 4 categories here. And they're interesting ones. Let's see if I can find them in this article. They use some fancy terms. I don't know why I can't.
Well, there are several different tests, and there's the one out there with the different personality types. There's like 16 different ones.
Yeah.
I think there's like 4 different ones. And you'll see sometimes in profiles or you know, things where people put like these letters after their name, like ENFJ, EST something, and this is their personality type, supposedly, because of whatever these different types of surveys are.
Right. So the 4 categories here are competitive drivers, diplomatic integrators, risk-taking pioneers, or loyal guardians. I like the sound of loyal guardians.
Nice. Okay.
So I thought we could pull out the test, and I don't know how successful this is going to be because we haven't actually taken the test, but wanted to pull it up and kind of see if we can go through it a little bit and just kind of see what's being asked and what it's all about. You know, I wanted it to be kind of a surprise and just do it off the cuff here.
Now, is this based off the Myers-Briggs test?
I don't think so. And again, it doesn't seem like, we'll get into it. From what I'm looking at, it doesn't seem like it's about yourself. Like, it's not like you ask, you do these questions and you're answering questions about your own personality. I think you're doing about other people. Like maybe Adams is doing this about people in his team. Like, I don't know. It's called a hunching tool.
Okay.
Deloitte, Deloitte, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Deloitte, Deloitte, Deloitte. Yeah. They're the ones who are behind. So let's begin. Let's just see what we get here. Start hunch. So name, I'm going to put Jay.
Okay.
This is not about me. I can't put Mike because I got to the first page of this before just to get an idea.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm answering about myself.
Well, it's funny. The front page says, take the first step in changing the way you communicate by creating a hunch. But then at the bottom, so it sounds like it's about you. But then you look down, it says, based on what you know about an individual, you'll develop a hypothesis. So
Answer the following 20 questions to create a hunch about your contact's business chemistry type. So I'm going to try to make a hunch about you, I suppose, here. What would you like to get? Of the 4 categories, you want to be a competitive driver, a diplomatic integrator, a risk-taking pioneer, that's a good one too, or a loyal guardian.
What would I like to get?
What do you think you are? Yeah.
I'm trying to find that list that you just named there so I can look at those.
It's pretty complicated. All right, let's start. How well do you know this person? I hardly know this person. I have had a few interactions, but no, I know this person well.
I think I would probably fall into a loyal guardian role and maybe an integrator.
Not a risk-taking pioneer?
I'm looking here. The integrator has the relationship oriented, has the dreamer, has somewhat diplomatic. The guardian has reserved, methodical, loyal, practical. I think I might fall into one of those 2 categories.
All right, well, let's see. Because now we're saying, in general, this person tends to tolerate confrontation or avoid confrontation. Now, I'm answering it about you, so I've got to say what I think.
Right.
I think you don't want the drama most of the time. I think you're like a peaceful guy, you do the Tai Chi and all that kind of stuff, so I would say avoid. This person is emotionally expressive or contained. I don't even know. And you can say, I don't know. I'm going to say contained. I think you're more chill, usually. In group situations, this person is likely to take charge or contribute as a team player. I'm going to say take charge on that one. This person is probably more risk avoidant or risk tolerant, or I don't know. And it depends on the situation too. Risk avoidant. It's hard to just generalize. Risk avoidant, or I would say risk avoidant. This person likes to focus on the big picture or the details. This is nuance, so I'll say the details. This person tends to make decisions deliberately or quickly, so deliberately. This person is comfortable not knowing all the answers, likes to know all the answers. No, I think it's comfortable not knowing all the answers because what we talk about on this, that there are a lot of wrinkles in these things and nuances, and we try to explore different ideas. And be open-minded. So I'll say he's comfortable not knowing. This person tends to be outgoing around new people or quiet around new people, or I don't know. Maybe it depends on the person. I would say outgoing in general. This person would probably prefer meetings with a structured agenda or a brainstorming session. Say brainstorming. This person is very skilled with numbers or that's a good one. Are you more skilled with numbers or words? Well, we're going to say words. You're in hip hop. I would describe this person as more direct or diplomatic. Stating the facts bluntly or considering the impact on others' feelings. The funny thing is, it's hard for me to answer these questions because I really haven't thought about this in regards to you.
Right.
So it's like, I don't even know really. It's a hunch, right? So we're trying to get a hunch.
Right.
I never really, even for myself, this might be hard to answer, but I'm thinking about somebody else. That's even harder.
These types of quizzes I have, even for my, to even do myself, I have difficulty answering. Like, how do you, because you don't, like you said, there is, it depends on situations.
Right. Absolutely. So it's hard to generalize. I'm going to say stating the facts bluntly. When working with others, this person seems to be more focused on the objective than on emotions and social cues, very attuned to emotions and social cues, tone of voice, body language, or I don't know. I might even say I don't know on this one. I think there have been situations where you've picked up on body language and tone of voice. Like, remember like the original campaign, it's like maybe someone says something, but the way they're saying it might give you another story. I think you could pick up on that kind of thing. Usually I'm gonna say that.
I remember in incidents during that time when we went to, we were out there at the cop shop event, and speaking of that first question, talking about being quiet and reserved or avoiding confrontation, I was the one that was like, what was that dude's name? I forget his name. He was a battle rapper, and he was he was not being a nice guy to you because he was like, oh, you're trying to run for office, get out of here. What do you don't belong here. And I was the one like, screw you, dude. Like,
that is true. You were not avoidant in that situation. That guy's name was Buttertones, was it?
No, that was the dude that battled.
You're thinking of Diabolic.
He went at Quali. Diabolic, yeah.
Diabolic came to my defense.
When?
In that particular instance.
No, that was Diabolic.
No, it was not. I remember this now. Diabolic was there. He was outside in this alley outside this venue. It was the other guy who was from that group. I think it was called Bad Karma. I think his name was Buttertones. He was the one who was trying to start a fight with me. Diabolic said to him, what you're saying doesn't even make sense because anyone could be a politician. If you ran for office, you'd be a politician. It doesn't say anything about what you stand for. He was actually defending me.
Okay. I remember it was him and another guy there. I thought it was Diabolic that was the one speaking, but okay, maybe it was Buttertones.
Diabolic was actually the chill one in that situation. He's the guy who did a lot of work with little technique. Say it again.
I think he did get kicked out of the event that night because they'd been, people were drinking. They were,
not Diabolic. You mean the other guy?
No, but Diabolic.
I don't know about that part. Yeah. In making a decision, this person believes that consensus is not a priority or consensus is essential. Consensus.
Dictator or democracy.
Huh?
Dictator or democracy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to say consensus is essential. This person probably prefers competition or harmony. That's a good one because both, depending on the situation. I'll say I don't know. This person's work style is more fluid or methodical. Work style. Fluid. That's the artistic side, the creativity. When it comes to technology, this person is on the cutting edge, slower to adapt. No, on the cutting edge. This person is more realistic or creative. Creative. And that's a good thing. That's the whole theme of the episode. This person tends to treat colleagues as coworkers and prefers to keep relationships at a professional level, friends, and tries to get them to know them on a personal level. I'll say friends, more informal, getting to know someone, work together with someone more you can be social with. I would describe this person as someone who adapts to new environments easily or takes time to adapt to new environments. I would say easily. I think you're pretty good wherever you're at. I remember you got that spot in Valley Stream. You were good there. You went to Japan. You adapted there. I think you're probably better at adapting than most. So let's say that. Okay. We have results.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah. Which were the two that you predicted?
I predicted that it would be the loyal guardian or the whatever the integrator thing was.
They're saying you have a combination of two. Your responses demonstrate traits of both the pioneer and the integrator.
Interesting.
Which means your hunched individual could be one, the other, or both. Now it's giving me tips on how to communicate with you. That's interesting.
Ah, okay. So it's basically you find how it's teaching you how to communicate with that person that you're speaking of. Maybe you're gonna go into a meeting with this person. You're like,
Right.
okay, this is what I know about this person. How can I really get on the pulse with this person?
Yeah, that's what it seems like, which is an interesting way to do this. So, okay, so let's see if this applies to you. Interaction tips for Jay. Do bring energy and creativity. Okay. Discuss abstract concepts and generate ideas. You're gonna love this one. Explore nuances. Spend time exploring new ideas and possibilities. Provide context for discussions. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Here are the don'ts.
Uh-oh.
Don't be overly direct or skeptical. Don't be negative. Don't interrupt to complete their thought. Okay. Don't be too inflexible. Don't show your impatience. Don't be thrown off by tangential thinking and discussion. I mean, I agree with those. I just kind of feel like this applies to everyone, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially the don'ts seem like it would be very universal.
Yeah. Let's do like a 20-question personality test and then say the advice is don't cut them off and don't be rude to them.
Right. And I think that kind of fits with everybody. Because is there a personality type where they're like, yeah, please interrupt me, be rude to me. I enjoy it. Interesting.
Yeah, and then you could even break it down further and look at the pioneer versus the integrated, because I was looking at the both, and then there are different columns for the others. Like for the integrator, it says offer support, tell stories about people, share your own feelings to bond with them, be friendly, authentic, personal, lean forward, make eye contact. Okay, but the pioneer, let's see what any differences in that. Oh, okay, it's interesting. So for the pioneer, meet them in unusual environments. That's a kind of a specific one, right? That would probably depend on the person. Be daring, emphasize fun, freedom, and adventure, brainstorm using visuals. Okay, so these are pretty specific, I would say, depending on the person.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Do you prefer people to meet you in unusual environments, Jay?
I don't know, I guess. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that, Yeah, I don't know.
Did my evaluations of you seem about right, or would you disagree with them?
Yeah, I think they seem pretty, I think there might have been a couple that I were like, oh, I'm interested. Yeah. You even thought that way. But yeah, I think they were about things. And to be fair, I was kind of trying to follow along and thinking about how I would answer in regards to you. And I think there'd be many of the same answers.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was looking at it, well, honestly, I liked the sound of Loyal Guardian because it sounded like something out of a comic book, ironically. I don't know, it just sounded cool, like a gargoyle on top of the building or something, right? But probably if I was going to evaluate this, I would think of myself as a pioneer. What is the integrator?
That's about diplomatic, being empathetic, being non-confrontational.
Consensus builder. Yeah. Non-linear.
Right.
They can seem indecisive. Yeah, I can see that, especially the lawyer side, trying to like analyze things from every angle before you make a decision. So
I don't know if I would say that you would be, to me, I don't know if I would say you'd be indecisive though.
I wouldn't say I am, but I could see how I could seem that way if I'm being very deliberate with the decision.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, I think even like, being a lawyer, having to weigh different options and whatnot. But I think even before law school, I don't think I would have considered you indecisive. You always had a pretty clear idea of what you wanted to do. Whatever the situation was, and went forward. In music, you wanted to do an album. You want to do an album a certain way. You wanted to speak to this, and putting together shows. You had an idea of how to do it. It wasn't like, I don't know about this and that. There was, you didn't waffle a lot in certain ideas and even creative thinking in that regard.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I just think maybe it could come off as indecisive if you don't rush to a decision, because I do like to think things through.
Right. Yeah. And you're spontaneous and sometimes, but also not as you don't adhere as much to constraints as far as like time constraints. Like
Right.
you're always you're like, yeah, it's it's supposed to leave at like 9 o'clock. It's like 9:15. You're like, yeah, it's all right.
Right.
I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there anyway. It doesn't matter.
Right.
As long as
The
we
world
get
is not
there.
going to end.
As long as we get there,
Right. Party starts when we get there.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, interesting stuff. And it's interesting that the mayor is having his team do this. See, I thought maybe he was doing it to try to put people into categories. That's how the article at least seemed to present it. Like he's going to do this for his staff and then see who's his loyal guardian, who's his pioneer, like who can he trust with different jobs. Maybe that's part of it, but maybe it is, like we are discovering here, a way for him to understand better how to interact with these people.
I think it's also how is it being conducted? He's having them do it about the team, or he's doing it about the team?
I think he's doing it about the team. I mean, I don't know. That's at least that's how it's presented when you click on it.
Because if this was done, I could see this being a sort of a team building or bonding type of activity, because by doing it, you have to think about your coworker and to be able to answer these questions.
Right.
That
Right.
does kind of make a little bit more of a closeness or a connection with that person, an understanding of that person.
Well, but what if you just completely misread them and you just don't know them and just saying, I have a hunch this person likes tea and not coffee, and you're just backwards.
Right. But then if you're discussing these things, then now you've got a dialogue.
Right. Right. So you can present your findings and the person can be like, I disagree with your assessment entirely.
Yeah, no, dude, you're completely wrong. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But what's also fascinating about this is that these questions didn't have to be posed in terms of me having a hunch about you. I could have easily answered them about myself.
Right. Yeah. But I think I think there is a little bit of a different value in having someone answer it about someone else.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes the perception of either what you're putting out and how they're receiving how you go about and navigate through situations versus how you think you're representing yourself.
Right. Right. And especially in politics, perception is reality. So
Yeah.
maybe how everyone else sees you is more important than how you see yourself.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should put the link to the test in the chat if people want to take this themselves,
Yeah.
or do it at their workplace or whatever.
Yeah. Here it is. I got it right here. Let's see. The Deloitte 20 questions here.
So some breaking news this morning, actually, I guess it's not so breaking anymore, but it happened today. There was a sperm whale that washed up on the shore in Rockwood. It's actually Beach 73rd Street, I believe. So right there in Auburn. And unfortunately passed away there early this morning. You had people trying to push it back into the ocean. It's a very big animal. And for those who don't know, sperm whales are huge animals, some of the biggest on Earth, I believe. And from what I'm hearing, scientists were surprised that it was found this far west. I mean, they kind of are scattered throughout the oceans, and so it's not like they're complete strangers to New York, our area, part of the world. But usually you don't see them wash up on the beach like this. And so that was, something that was kind of out of the ordinary, and sad that this whale unfortunately passed away.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. Just for it to be there, there had to be something that really went wrong as far as navigation, or even health or whatnot.
Right.
It's not like I said, it's not a normal place for them to be. So
yeah, I'm trying to pull up a picture. I think the Rockaway Times had it, the Wave had it. Of course, our local papers did a great job covering it.
yeah, I saw it actually. I think I saw it earlier on Instagram. One of
I
the
put it on my stories also.
okay, it might have been on yours.
Yeah.
On your stories where I saw it.
Here's Katie McFadden from the Rockaway Times. Let's see if I could do a share screen for those watching the video right now. Cutting edge of technology, Jay, right? That was one of the things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I did agree with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're definitely more cutting edge than I am on technological advances. So here we go. There's the whale. You guys can see it, right?
Yep,
Let's see. Look at that shot.
that's a big boy.
Yeah. Now, I believe, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, from what I was reading earlier, I believe that this type of whale is the largest of the whales with teeth. It might even be the largest toothed creature in the world.
Hmm.
Because the blue whale is bigger, but I don't think it has teeth, right? It's got that, like, what do you call that? I forget what you call it, where it traps the fish in its mouth.
I don't know.
It's like a filter. I forget that someone in the chat can let me know. It's like a filter kind of where the fish, everything can come in one way, but not come back out. So it just captures its prey. But this, as you can see, this has teeth.
Yeah. Do we know why they call them sperm whales? I'm sure there's some
It's
kind
based, I think, yeah, I was looking that up before also. I think it's the shape of the head, or it's shortened from something else.
would that really that would be kind of a bro thing, like, hey, that looks like sperm, let's just
No,
call
I
it
don't think that's
sperm.
exactly. In fact, let me, because I was reading this before and it wasn't anything that was too memorable. It wasn't anything as funny as that. And I also read something about the oily substance on its head, but again, not let that contact.
Are you sure?
I could be wrong, but yeah. So here we go. So I pulled out the article on it again. It is the largest toothed predator in the world.
Yeah.
They can live over 70 years. Okay. Spermaceti, I believe it's called spermaceti.
It's about the waxy substance found in their heads.
Yep.
It's in an oil sac that helps the whales focus sound, and it was used in oil lamps, lubricants, and candles.
Yep. I see that right here too.
Yeah, because I used to use whale oil to light candles and lamps and stuff. And
so that's where the name comes from. It's also the kind of whale that I guess was in Moby Dick.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Huh, okay. Interesting.
So yeah, do we have an average size just for some context here? How big are these guys normally?
They are
30 feet. Is that they averaged, I'm sorry, males average 52 feet. That's what I see here. Wow.
right. Females around 39 feet.
Okay.
Pretty big creatures.
Yeah. Imagine being on the beach in Rockaway and seeing that.
Yeah, right? That would just be weird.
He's scary.
Absolutely.
So guess that about does it. Oh, I wanted to ask you before we wrapped up, Jay.
Sure.
The Spotify achievement that we unlocked, or whatever it was, that said that we're in the top 20% of most shared podcasts worldwide. How did we do that?
I don't know. That's their, every year Spotify sends out their summary for the end of the year, and they do it for if you're a Spotify listener, they'll send out a summary of all your stats for the year. They'll email it to you. If you're an artist and you have your music on Spotify and you've claimed your artist account, they'll send you your stats for how many plays, how many countries, and all this stuff. And if you have a podcast and you have that podcast author account, they take the statistics and send you those as well.
Yeah,
So,
no, I mean, I had a theory on that. Top 20% sounds impressive, and I'm guessing it is, but there's probably so many podcasts out there now where people just record an episode and just put it up there, never share it, never do any promotion. It just goes online and it's basically anonymous. That probably is just like the largest
right.
segment of the podcasting world, such that any activity on ours is going to automatically get us up somewhere.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but it sounds good.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I mean, it does show that some people at least like what we do, I guess.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I think, like I said, even with the smaller audience, I think for especially, it seems to be a localized audience, which is good for local and community discussion and topics. I think it's absolutely.
even if it gets 1,000, 2,000 views, I mean, maybe it's not impressive for a worldwide audience, but if these are mostly local folks checking that out, that is a lot. And that shows that we are engaging our local community in a pretty strong way, because usually you don't see that kind of involvement at that degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, I was happy with it.
Yeah, let's keep pushing in the new year. Let's do even bigger and better things.
Absolutely.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. I think we went long this time, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Had a lot to cover.
That's all good.
Yeah. Subscribe on YouTube, Nuance with Mike Scala and Jay Carter. Check us out. Of course, we're live on the Facebook every week, but we've got the audio up wherever podcasts can be heard, and YouTube for replays. I think we're approaching, what, 40,000 views on the YouTube channel now?
Yeah, something like that.
So yeah, let's keep this going, guys. Thank you all for the support. As always, these are always great, nuanced discussions. And I feel like we should be signing off with my tagline. I've never done this. I don't know why, but I like to say we've got work to do. That should be probably the closing. Like, let's keep the brand going. You know what I mean? Like, thank you, everyone. We've got work to do. And on this special episode, why don't we ride out with Timid featuring Ed OG, produced by Granddaddy IU.
Big targets only seem to miss. Gangster rap is all fantasy, leads to exist. A finger's never stronger than a fist. Took the other route, no longer on my list. We can't coexist. My show flow knows the risk. Spit it in the air, comes back down as miss. I won't back down a twist. Steve Nash on the pass. Here's the assist. I connect the arm and hammer just like a wrist. Come on.
I guess I'm not Timid verse then before we wrap up.
Instances of greatness mixed with resemblances of figures of high placement. So fly, I can fly the wide divine design. The reason behind it is because I'm assigned to be nothing less than Malcolm at the window. Stir it up in Nixon, Martin in front of Kinko. The audacity of hope, the embodiment of dope. I could ask if you could cope, but the answer would be no. I know I have an ego though, and this is how I work this. You would think if you should follow me or your God to worship. I'm a squad of wordsmiths, jihad with the verbiage. Your facades are perfect, that's why I make you nervous. Sway but was betrayed, but was.
Well, there it is. Timid, NOG, this is the way. Thank you all for tuning in.
By Granddaddy IU.
Rest in peace to Granddaddy IU, absolutely.